Hello, my name's Mike Harris, and I'm the nephew of Rosemary Curl, or of course, as we call her, Aunt Rosemary and Uncle Pete. And it's my humbling honour to be able to have the opportunity today to say a few words and talk about Aunt Rosemary. It's an odd thing because she's been there all of my life, so suddenly she's not there. Suddenly, on a trip to England, I won't see her again, and that's taking a bit of coming to terms with. And of course, it makes me sad, as indeed there are so many who are sad over the loss of such a wonderful lady. As I think back to my earliest recollections of Aunt Rosemary and Uncle Pete, the first thing is that the many visits they would make to Coventry, or indeed we would make to Gloucester or wherever they were living at that time. And the opportunity my parents would have to fellowship with Aunt Rosie and Uncle Pete, and for Andrew and Caroline and us Harry's kids, that we would have a good time together as well. Very, very, very fond memories of that kind of thing. Also, as I think back to my childhood, I think about Christmas. The gifts under the tree, my kids get a lot more now than we ever did, that's for sure. And so under the tree, there would be a handful of gifts that we would receive. And through the years, as we got older, one aunt, an uncle or another would drop away. And the gifts would get a little less, but not Aunt Rosie and Uncle Pete. Their gift was always under the tree. And as I recall, pretty much to the time that I left home. I always remember as well, my dad would look forward to his gift from Aunt Rosemary. We'd always know what it was. It was the most predictable gift in the world. It was the latest Giles edition. But Dad collected those Giles books and was so proud of them, would just love to read through that annual every year. In 1978, I remember I had the opportunity to go visit with Aunt Rosie and Uncle Pete. And Andrew, of course, was there, and it's a treasured memory for me going there. I just remember the kindness and the hospitality. I just remember how welcome I was in that home, and how it just was wonderful being with family. It's a great memory for me because it's the first time I can ever remember going away on a holiday without my parents. I also remember when I was 19 years of age. I was the YP band leader at the Salvation Army in Coventry. And as the YP band leader, I'd been asked to preach a sermon on the Sunday night meeting there in Cardiff. I was 19 years old, and I was as nervous as anything. And so I remember getting out that Sunday night, my sister Susan was playing in the band, and I looked down at the congregation, and there was sitting Aunt Rosie and Uncle Pete. They had taken the time to go and to sit and to support me. That's exactly why they were there, to support me. And that night, I nervously preached my first ever sermon, and they were so kind and so complimentary afterwards. The irony, of course, is that that's kind of what I do now. I preach all the time. I've preached countless sermons, but I only preached one first sermon, and Uncle Pete and Aunt Rosemary were both present when I preached that sermon. Aunt Rosemary and Uncle Pete were very supportive of me when I moved to America. I've been here for 30 years. I've got a little bit of a twang, I'm sure I do. But they've twice been over for weddings and have come to support me and paid a lot of money to be able to do that. But of course, they love to travel. So they had those 2 trips to America, a number of trips to Canada, Australia, Spain. I know my parents went with you to Spain, and probably many other countries or places I don't even know about. So much was their enjoyment of that. And then in later years, they took a particular interest in finding out about the family history. And so both sides of the family were explored, and a lot of hours and a lot of travel went into accumulating information on the family trees, which proved particularly beneficial for my daughter Hope, as she did a school project that required her to go back and look at her family history. And thanks to Aunt Rosemary and the work that she'd done, Hope got a very good grade on that particular project. And that reminds me of perhaps one of the more significant things about Aunt Rosemary in what we call the later years of my time with her. Living so far away, I've had a bad habit of losing touch with people, quite frankly. I've lost touch with friends, even family. Some folk who are listening to this video right now, I've not done a very good job at all with in keeping up. But Aunt Rosemary was not that way. She was very good at connecting with people. Every birthday, every anniversary, you could guarantee we'd still get a card from Aunt Rosemary and Uncle Pete. And no disrespect to Uncle Pete, but my guess is that Aunt Rosemary was the one that composed those cards. For my daughter Hope, whose birthday was April the 19th. They shared a birthday. Hope would always get a card from Aunt Rosemary on that date. And although Hope grew up in a country far away from her, who met Aunt Rosemary a handful of times, Hope will always remember Aunt Rosemary because she always sent her those cards. That's quite something, isn't it? And just a reminder to people like myself how important it is to simply make sure people are remembered. I would like to say on behalf of my side of the family, that's my mum, Aunt Faye to some of you, or Faye, my sisters Linda and Susan and their families, how sorry we are at this loss. And we feel the loss, we do, but we clearly don't feel it in the same way. That it's just not quite the same. And so for Uncle Pete and Andrew and Tracy and Caroline and Brian and Nathan and Peter, what you're feeling right now is a great sense of loss, and that will change. It will never go away, but it'll become something you learn to bear with. But of course, for us, we believe that Aunt Rosemary is the one that's okay in all of this. She has been what we term promoted to glory. It means she's inherited this eternal reward. She was a lifelong salvationist, committed salvationist, fourth generation salvationist, and was very proud of her Salvation Army lineage, as indeed I am, because I inherited that same sort of family history. And for years and years, she worshipped her Lord and Savior every Sunday. She sang in the songsters. She was a very active part of the Salvation Army. And now she's inherited this wonderful reward for her service. She didn't work to get that reward. That was the byproduct, if you will, of all that she did, the commitment that she made to God through the Salvation Army. And I tell you this, the greatest desire that she would have is that one day when we all breathe our last, that we join her in that eternity. I believe that would be her greatest wish. So our thoughts and our prayers are not for her because we believe that, well, she's inherited the greatest thing that we ever can inherit. But they are with Uncle Pete, with Andrew, with Caroline, with all the family. Please know that we're continuing to pray for you and that we do care. I'm sorry I can't be with you. America's on the amber list. The amount of time I would have to be holed up, which was just too long. But my prayer is I can be with you again soon. And we can talk about Aunt Rosemary and keep her life alive, if you will, just by our conversation, just by remembering and realizing that each one of us to some degree has been influenced by this wonderful lady. God bless your family. God bless your friends.